So let's get right into this. I'm using vegetable oil. I usually use grapeseed oil, but we didn't have any, so I used vegetable oil this time around. For the seasonings, this is the type of seasonings that I use. You don't have to use the exact type of seasonings that I'm using, but this is what I have, and I always use these types of seasonings because I guess you could say I'm used to using them. But they do have different options regarding to seasoning roast. Okay, so this is the roast that I'm using for tonight. I got this at HEB. It was $10.68, and this would actually feed a little bit over, I would say a little bit over 5 people. But we do eat big portions at my house, so this literally fed 3 adults and 2 kids. But if you do have more people at home, then you would probably need a bigger roast than this. Okay, so after I took the roast out, I did wash my hands because you just want to make sure you're very clean, especially using raw meat or even cooked meat. But I would definitely wash your hands after taking the roast and laying it down on your cutting mat. So as you can see, I'm just sprinkling the seasonings over top of the roast. I'm doing this first because the seasoning part that I'm seasoning on top of the roast will go straight down into the pot. So I want to make sure I'm prepping it first, and then I can just go ahead and flip it in the pot and then do the other side. If you notice, I didn't use a measuring cup or a tablespoon, whatever. I'm just sprinkling this on by eye, so you don't have to really use measuring utensils. You can just like sprinkle it on like I'm doing. That way you don't have to measure every one into the measuring utensils. Another thing is you can actually marinate this overnight. That way it's actually ready to go. But since this was frozen, I put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then I took it out midday to let it thaw out a little bit more. And then now it's about 3:30, and I like to prepare this because this roast do take a long time to cook. And you want to make sure you used all the time to cook this roast. That way it can pull apart correctly. So I'm using a stainless steel pot. We got this set for our new place, and these pots are like literally a lifesaver. Okay, let's talk about how I put the roast in the pot. Basically it just slipped through my hands like butter, and then like it just fell in there. So you might want to just be a little bit more careful than what I did it, because it is hot grease and it can pop everywhere. So just be mindful of that. But back to the stainless steel pots. We got these at Walmart, and these are a lifesaver regarding to cleaning. So I would definitely recommend a stainless steel pot or an iron pot. Those two I would definitely recommend. So as you can see, I'm seasoning the top of the roast the same way I seasoned the bottom of the roast, and this is how it's going to look basically. So I'm just following the same steps that I did with the other side. Okay, so the reason why I'm frying the bottom and top is because it makes it pull apart a lot quicker once the roast is done. You just want to check the roast to make sure it is brown. It don't have to be crispy. You just need to make sure it's just brown enough, and then flip it over to the other side and do the same thing on the other side. You don't really have to do the sides of the roast, but I did. I also added onions to my roast. I'm not adding vegetables. That is really just optional. But this is more of like a beginner stage if you're new to making roast. Because if you add the vegetables in the beginning stage of making the roast and this is the first time you're doing it, you can actually overcook the vegetables. So I would definitely play around. It took me a couple times to get this correct, so don't be too hard on yourself if you fail the first time or the second time, because it took me a while to get the roast correct. So this is the beef broth that I'm using. I got this from HEB. They usually say it's like 4 cups in those containers, and so I use half of that. But if you don't use the container that I'm using, you just want to do 2 cups of the beef broth, and you want to make sure that you're not covering the whole roast. If you want to add a little bit more, that's fine, but I would do like at least half or 3/4 of where the liquid is on the roast. Okay, so once the liquid is done, I put the lid on the pot, and I turn the heat all the way down to low. This is a slow cook. So this cooked for a good maybe 3.5 hours. So the first hour I had it on low for a full hour. Then for the second hour I flipped it. So you want to flip the roast on the second hour. On the third hour I flipped it back, and then I turned up the heat to high. That way it can cook the rest of the roast. And so you want to do that. So you want to flip it about 2 to 3 times, if anything 2 times, because you want to make sure the cooking is even on both sides. So you would flip the roast after 1 hour, and then after the second hour you would flip the roast again, and then on the third hour you will flip it, and that should make sure that the cooking is even on both sides. So on the first hour I had it on low, the second hour I had the heat on low, and then the third hour I had turned up the heat to high to make sure it was boiling. And then the last 30 minutes I added the barbecue sauce, as you can see, and honey to the barbecue sauce. I'm not adding flour or anything like that, because I just want this to be a very creamy sauce for the roast, and this will actually give it a lot more taste and a lot more texture. We're going to the honey and barbecue sauce. Then I added the seasonings that I wanted. Now the seasonings are, of course, are optional, but these are the seasonings that I added to the barbecue sauce and the honey. So make sure you're mixing that sauce very well, and what you're gonna do is put the barbecue sauce and honey on the side of the roast. Make sure you have enough to put on top of the roast as well. So after you put the sauce in the pot, please make sure that you're mixing the sauce with the beef broth, and you want to make sure that you're mixing that very well. Do not skip this step. Just make sure that you're mixing it very, very well, and on top of the roast as well. So just try to get that in there, and try to get some of that sauce on the sides of the roast, onto the top of the roast. It will help it mix a lot better. This might take some time, but just please don't skip this step, because this step is very important. Y'all, please use a bigger spoon. I don't know what I was thinking, my goodness. But if you do have like a spoon spatula, please use that, because this shouldn't have taken this long. Okay, so once you got all the sauce and the beef broth mixed in together, you're gonna put the lid back on, and the 30 minutes that I had mentioned, you're gonna use that 30 minutes to keep that high heat up, and allow the sauce and the beef broth to cook together. This is how it looks, and I'm telling y'all, this roast was so delicious. So I'm checking the roast with my spoon by pressing down, and if you can dig your spoon into the roast, that means it's done. So I'm just gonna put some sauce on the roast and just keep it moist on the top, and it is ready to be served. Okay, so my husband actually stepped out to go get some drinks for us for dinner tonight. So I went ahead and just served the kids. Usually he gets his plate first, of course, but he just told me to go ahead and serve the kids so they can start eating. If you can see how I'm pulling the roast apart, that means that this roast took the perfect timing to cook, and the preparation was an A+. So if your roast is pulling apart like that, that means you done killed cooking this roast. And I'm telling you guys, this roast was so delicious. When my husband got back, I made his plate, and about time when I made my plate and sat down, he got up because he was actually done, and he went to go get some more. This is a really quick roast dinner. Again, I didn't add vegetables to my roast because I wasn't planning on doing that. Also, again, if you are a beginner and you're trying to cook roast, do not add vegetables. I would actually cook the vegetables on the side until you actually get the roast down completely. Then you can add the vegetables, because again, you can actually overcook the vegetables and it really does taste awful. I've done that the first time. I overcooked the vegetables. The roast was still good, but you could just taste it. It wasn't really what I was hoping for. So make sure you take your time when cooking the roast. So this is my plate, and the sauce I just added on top of the roast, and I made my homemade potato salad, and then I got a box of mac and cheese to go with dinner tonight. So this was basically dinner for us tonight. The roast, I'm telling y'all, that roast was so delicious. If you guys do try it, please give me a comment down below. If you guys have any questions, please give me a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Shalom.